And the main event for today is to have a chat with Maya Rao, who has a lot of experience in devised theatre. Before we get there, I thought first we should just introduce ourselves very informally, and then I will just throw out a few, let's say a few pointers regarding dramaturgy. It's nothing formula, no formula here, no blueprint, just a few things to keep in mind so that you form, your own views as you are watching other resource persons. There's no one way of looking at anything, certainly not dramaturgy. So before we get to that point, I thought we should just introduce ourselves, just very, very briefly, very informally. Please feel at ease, and this is just an opportunity for us to share a few things over 5 days, nothing more than that. So just relax and just let's talk to each other and get to know each other's work and how we can help each other. So I'm just going to introduce myself a bit briefly and say that my name is Rustom, and you're free to call me that. Basically I was trained as a dramaturg way back in '77 at the Yale School of Drama, big school. The big schools sometimes come with trademarks. I can assure you nobody knew what dramaturgy was in my entire program. We were the first guinea pigs, as it were. And but I have been working informally as a dramaturg with many artists. And I think we don't have the profession of the dramaturg in India, but I think informally, because we love to chat and we love to argue and we love to think and contradict, we are dramaturgs already. We're already in the mode, the dramaturgical mode. So I'm also a writer, and I'm based in Calcutta at the moment.
Hi, my name is Violina in the register, but I prefer Monia, and I'm trying to check it in the name, but that's a different story. I am maybe a playwright. I also direct devised, and I am trying to get back into performance, like as a performer myself. I am a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto, Center for Drama Theatre and Performance Studies, and before this, my training has been in live theatre and comparative literature.
Thanks. So what do we call you, Monia?
Monia is good.
Okay, Monia. Yeah.
I am Pritash. I do theatre, and I have been doing it for a long time. I like it. Currently, I work in a group named Shomuho in Kolkata. It's a queer feminist, tries to develop some queer feminist counter narratives from traditional texts. Maybe that's the beginning of it. It's a very new group, and I am trained in devising. I love doing devising. Our focus for the group is accessibility, inclusivity, and queer film visibility. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Moon. My basic training was in art history, but I'm also part of the collective Shomuho, and I'm doing theatre, and we're like 4 of us are joining in this session, but one is still not here. So this is it.
That was interesting when I was looking at the participation, and we always think of individuals, but there are at least 2 groups of people who are working collectively. How can you separate one from the other? Of course, I couldn't accommodate all 12, I'm sorry. But it's like, because that's another way of doing theatre. It's not just on your own, like this. This is a great way of doing theatre. Please.
Hello, I am Sholini. I have done my master's from Goethe-Institut University in English literature, and as you know, I am already working with Shomuho, and I call myself a performer, and I also sing and write songs and try to compose music. So that's it.
Yes.
I am Divya Satcher. I am from Delhi, and my relationship with theatre has more or less, I won't say ended, but it's reached a break because I got into films. So I'm a filmmaker, and I'm a photographer, and I teach screenwriting and direction to students in Delhi.
Yeah, I was very interested in your application. She filmmaker, she makes film. Dramaturgy, I would just throw it out. Although it's sort of coming out of theatre, it's no longer linked to theatre. I would say there's a dramaturgy of a conference, there's a dramaturgy of this meeting, in subtle kinds of ways. So what you were doing was very interesting.
Thank you.
Happy you're here. Please.
Hi, I'm Rosalie, and I grew up between Amsterdam in the Netherlands and New York City, and I pursued my master's in fine arts and theater directing. After that, I worked primarily as a director, sometimes a performer and choreographer, mostly working on stories of immigration, migration, and multilingual stories. And then while I was working on my PhD, I met Devaroti, and we began to work together very closely interculturally. And I recently began as professor at the University of Maine, where I teach theater and dramatic literature.
Wow. Welcome. You've come a long distance, but were you going to be here anyway?
I was going to be here anyway, because we're working together.
Yeah, so.
And then it just was like fate that it was like,
It's
I was
good
very
for us.
lucky about that.
Great. Yeah, David.
Hi, I'm Dramaturgy. I have been trained in comparative literature, which got me interested in narratives and oral narratives. So I work with everydayness, experiences from the everyday. I focus on women's narratives. And that kind of connected Rosalie and me, and we started working on intercultural and cross-cultural narratives. And I also teach performing arts in Residency University. I'm based in Kolkata.
Welcome. Hey.
Hi, I'm Rajdeep. So I began primarily as a researcher, writer, and I've done my PhD from JMU itself, and Rustom was my supervisor there. So I worked on dramaturgy of divorce plays, basically performances of divorce plays, and that's also because I'm from Shantiniketan, so that's also my religion. But I have been working with a blind theatre group based in Kolkata called Onnodesh, and I have been working in various roles, because in the blind theatre group you never know where you are required, what kind of work you are doing. So it's always doing support work. But dramaturgical work was one of the main things that I was doing. And yes, so I have been particularly interested in visible dramaturgy and how to think about it. So yes, so that's about it.
One of our dramaturgs from the German team actually focuses on disabilities. I think it's going to be interesting to have a chat with her. Yeah.
Yes, I'm Suraj. I'm from Karnataka. I did my diploma in theatre from Unasam, and I teach there. And then I went for more further training with Kannada sir. And I worked for a long time in theatre, Karnataka theatre. And I realized something is missing in my practice. So I took a break and I learned music. And now I'm in art and aesthetics. I'm doing my master's.
Wonderful students. And from a very, very special institution, Ninasam. Is that where you did your early work?
Yeah.
I spent all my theatre work I owe it to Ninasam, which is this rural theatre school in a village called Hegodu in Karnataka. Extraordinary place.
Hi, I'm Shukara. I work in theatre. Broadly 3 areas. I work with dramatherapy, so I have private practice. I teach children, and I also write and direct. So, yeah. And I work with the publishing.
Lovely.
Yeah, my name is Anirban. I'm from Barakpur. Basically, I was working for the multinationals as a marketing team, and I have worked for 18 years over there. But while working, I just found my job is not interesting for me. That's why I've left my job, and I've taken a tremendous challenge to take dramaturgy as a profession. Currently, my 4-5 days are just running with the various theatre groups in Kolkata. And I want to write for all mediums, and not for the stage, but for the screen soon also.
Yes.
and I would like to go much more into it.
Lovely, Oliver. Happy to have you all here. It's a wonderful little team. We get to know each other. So I'm going to say a few words of dramaturgy. Just not a big lecture or anything, just what seems important to me. And so, as Frau Weber was saying, it's German. It comes with a German stamp in some ways. And for what it's worth, the first dramaturg was this great playwright and philosopher called Lessing. He had a job in the Hamburg National Theatre between 76 to 76 to 9. The dates are not important. What interests me is that he only lasted for 2 years as a dramaturg. He obviously found the theatre a crazy place. So he wanted his philosophy, he went back to philosophy. Now, I'm not interested in that history, but there are a few things I want to draw from it. So for me here, it's not the definition of the dramaturg that matters, because we will all be defining it for ourselves. That's okay. But what do you do as a dramaturg? What do you do? What's your work? So I'll just go back to Lessing because I think we can draw a few things from him. One, he was a playwright in residence. Okay? So I'd like to flag the point that in dramaturgy, writing is quite crucial. Okay? But it's not writing in terms of playwriting. Okay? Writing is a broader kind of activity. There are all kinds of writing. When you're doing a play, as you know, the writing could just be notes on a piece of paper. And that piece of paper becomes very, 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 very precious. Because those are your real thoughts, you're jotting them down. Jottings, that's writing. Choreography is another kind of writing. It's a writing of the body. That's what it actually means. And so there are all kinds of ways in which you can write. Yes, you can write a play. You can write a script. But before you do, let's say, a devised performance, and many of you are trained with it, you need to jot down a few notes. Maya Rao is full of that. Maya can do anything, any moment, she's an improviser. But if you probe her process, which is the key, there'll always be notes. And those are very precious to her, She doesn't part with them, Those notes are very important, So I want you to open the concept of writing, You can write through songs. That is one of these. Through singing, singing a song. Okay, that's one kind of writing. Okay, you can write through visuals. So when we use writing, we want to move away from literariness in a certain sense. Although the literary should not be ignored. Okay. Now, let's say in Germany, there's a dramaturg, and let me tell you, in most German theatres, because it's very driven. It's very common to have 10 dramaturgs in a theatre company. Not common. Very, very ordinary. 10 different dramaturgs. Okay. Now the director might say, I want to do Hamlet. Okay. Hamlet has a big cast. I want to do Hamlet with 5 actors. Write the script. Now that's quite a challenge. How do you take such a massive play as Hamlet and then say, okay, I want to get rid of this character, I want to double this character, come up with a new script. You're using Shakespeare's words, but you are reassembling it, you're cutting it up, That's dramaturgy at a very, very concrete level, okay? Dramaturgy often involves translation, okay? When you're working across languages, even when you guys are working on, let's say, Mahabharata or something, some knowledge of the original language, or you're working from a Bangla, you need to, and then the dramaturg has to come up with a new language, So these are some of the things that you need. A director may say, the 5th act of Peer Gynt is too mythical for me. I can't, in Germany, maybe I've done Peer Gynt and I know it works for me because we live with myth. Ours is a different context completely, Lekin, when you are in Germany, where's the myth? How do you relate? I want you to make that whole 5th act into a study of industrialization, create a factory on stage. So the dramaturg has to rewrite the 5th act. That's what you have to do. So what I'm saying, writing is important. But broadly, okay, that's one thing to hold on to. Just keep this in mind. Second, Lessing, and I go back to Lessing, he was a critic in residence. So while he was in his 2 years in Hamburg, where Germany was not yet a nation, so it's full of intrigues, France was doing theatre, and he was very jealous about that, and very nasty in some ways. He's not a critic in the formal sense. You know, what does a critic do? A critic comes at the end of any performance and evaluates it. The critic has no connection with the process of a performance. You're not expected to have any process in that kind of way. You're outside, you're objective, etc., etc., etc. Very archaic, but a very important kind of thing. But when you're a critic in residence, you are part of the process of any production. That's the crucial thing. You're not judging it from us, you're part of the team. Now, you may have disagreements, you know, all of those things happen in the creative process. There are disagreements among actors, there are disagreements among director and actor, that's common. That's right. But to be a critic in residence, critical thinking for me is crucial for dramaturgy.
How they stay there as an observer?
No, this is the thing. What is the proximity of the dramaturg? We'll get to that a little later. I'll keep your question in mind. But let's say the dramaturg is not out there. The dramaturg is in the theatre and very often in the rehearsal room itself. Now, what the behavior and the dynamics, that varies from situation to situation. Okay? But so you are an in-house kind of observer, questioner. And I'm sure all of you working in a collective mode do this all the time. You don't agree with a choice, you know, and that's interesting when you're working in the collective. Dramaturgy works in the collective, you know. You can't work in the, that's why in America, where I was from, there was no collective as such, where you can sit around a table or sit in a chair and just trash something out. Why are we doing this? That culture is very different. So, I would say two words come to mind. So let's keep critical thinking, questioning. So there are three questions I want to throw out to you, and I want you to always keep in mind. They're the simplest of questions. What, why, and how? Just that. What are you working on? Now, very often you don't know what you're working on until much later in the process, right? You don't really know what you're doing with a play, or you don't know what you're writing till maybe after 1 month. Oh, now I know what. You have to know what is it? And I don't just mean technically one act play, long play, dance, but I mean what in a more intrinsic sense. What are we doing? So our first film that we're showing with Maya, and it'll become more lively, she's done a little lecture for, actually I think, was it your audience? So she'd be happy to see you here. And it's called, what's the play? What's the play? You know, if you don't, she's working in a devised mode. What is it? What is it that you're trying to do? What is important? And what goes into what is a big question. You know? Second question, why? That for me is most important. Why are we doing this? There's so many people who do theatre, and you really wonder, you say, why are they doing theatre? Why are they committing themselves to this work? You know, we're not getting money for it, most of it. You know, we're spending time on it, God knows, you know, morning till night. So why are you doing it? You know, what is driving you to do it? Why do we, not just do it, why do we have to do it? And that's our strength. Because when you go into the German theatre, my God, these are factories. There are 300 people working in those theatres, 300 people, you know. So that why sometimes gets lost, but we can't afford to let go of the why, because that's all we have. We don't have anything else. We're not making money. We're not, you know, there's no real big thing, but we have to do it. So why are we doing it? That's never let go of that. Why? And the third word is how. And this is where the director comes in. I don't always think a dramaturg necessarily works out the how. He, she, they may throw out certain ideas, but, you know, the director then takes over. And this is where to use that Indian word that we all use, the jugalbandi begins between director and dramaturg. The contest of skills, and this is not always a happy relationship. I'll share with you, I have never really earned money as a dramaturg, never. But quite recently, I was appointed a dramaturg of a massive production that is now being staged in Singapore on the Market, because I could do that. It was a lot of money. I've never earned that kind of money. But it was a thoroughly dissatisfying experience. Because the director, literally, I had to be very polite, as everyone in Singapore is very, very polite. It's their state code, unlike ours, where we like to be rude and blunt. But it was very clear to me after 2 years of trying to form a dialogue, he was not interested. He was going to do exactly what he wanted to do. What is my role? Nothing. So I had to tell him, why are you paying me? What is this? You just want me to just collect my money every month? It's coming regularly. But where's the work? Where's the conversation? Where's the dialogue? So I pulled out. I just can't work like that. That's not acceptable to me. It's not ethical, you know. Anyway, I'm just giving you that it can be, but sometimes the closest relationships are between director and dramaturg. It is a partnership. It is a partnership, and it doesn't always exist, you know. But when you find that partnership, I think it can be very beautiful. It can be very, very creative and exciting because they're not exactly on the same, they're different ways of thinking, and that's what makes it interesting, you know. The director and the dramaturg, and so two words that, so I've thrown out a few things, 2 words that seem important: structure. I'm very preoccupied by structure. And I realize that even when you're deconstructing something, or you're in a sense destructuring something, or you're anti-structure, there is structure. You can't get away from structure. So what is structure? And I would just say, look at the room. And the room has got walls, and it's got a floor, and it's got certain apertures, and it's joineries, you know. How does one component meet another component, you know? Where are the gaps, you know? What is the space in between, you know? How does it hold together? So like one of Maya's productions is called Loose Woman. And I was talking structure, and she says it's a loose structure. It's very nicely put. But even nonetheless, it's a structure. I can't think of work without structure. Really, I'm quite perhaps old-fashioned, but meaning not making it formulaic, opening the idea of structure, breaking it down with fragments, whatever. But how does it hold together? You know, how does this room hold together, not collapse? I think structure is something we can't afford to forget. The other thing is a dangerous word: concept. Concepts can kill a production very often. You know, when you begin with this brainwave in your head and you think, I've got it, be careful. Because your production will look great for 5 minutes and then it will fall apart, it will be dead. It's not living. So I prefer to make it a verb, conceptualize it, something that is always thinking along, you know, and not just saying, this is what the concept, this is what it is. Yeah, whatever. I think we have to be careful about that. Finally, I'll end by saying that the dramaturg, for me, I've come back to it after many years, and I feel committed to it, is an in-between person. The dramaturg is always in between, you know, and that's a very strange position to be in. How in between? Well, first of all, I would say a dramaturg very often initiates projects. I have, you know, hundreds of projects in my mind, many of them don't get anywhere, you know. But the idea of something, you could be on a bus, you're on a train, you're looking at a street scene, God knows we have so many in our city, and you see something, you know, you say we have to do something about this, you know, whatever it is, a refugee problem or poverty, it could be whatever. or beauty. And so you're in between this initial idea in Arthashastra, which is important, uses the word bija, seed. It's the seed. You can't actually work without the seed, that initial impulse, Dramaturgs actually can have that earlier than the playwright or anybody else does it. And you're in between the seed and the realization of the seed. So you're in between that. You're in between text and performance. So that's also really important, text and performance. So text, whatever that text may be, it may be a big text, it may be scribbled notes, and the production, let's say, you're in between. Okay. So to answer your question, Maribel, I will not work very closely with the actors as a dramaturg. I will leave that to the director, But I will be observing that process and I will be sharing notes. Okay? That would be our goal. I may not give direct notes to an actor, but outside the room we can talk about anything. Okay? There are those little protocols that I feel a director, you ask me what's the difference? I've worked as a director, I've worked as a dramaturg. I think the basic difference is very simple for me. As a director, you have to work very closely with actors. Every single moment being movement, energy, it's not just ideas. You're working with bodies, you're working with feelings. You have to work very closely. I like that, but not all the time. Not all the time. I'm quite happy being in that in-between space where I'm observing that happening. So you're in between, let's say, text and production. And there's a third in between, and that third in between is between the production and the audience, or let's say the public sphere. That's another in between, because you can have all kinds of controversies today. So many plays have been banned or censored or they've been misunderstood, even in your own community. If you're working, let's say, on a transgender issue or disability, there's so many problems that can come up, And the dramaturg has to be the mediator. The dramaturg has to take on that role of sort of trying to figure out how do we try to address what is perceived as a problem. So you're in between at 3 different levels. So that's all I want to share with you at the moment, because this is not meant to be lecture, it's just throwing out a few points. It's different kinds of writing, okay? It's different kinds of critical thinking. Critical thinking is really important. It's asking questions all the time, even after the play is done. And I think you see this in Maya. She's never completed anything. She's always questioning. And it's a difficult thing to do. And the questions of what, why, how, okay. The relationship with the director, which can be very sensitive. And finally, I would say this in-betweenness, between process. So the dramaturg is dealing with process at the end of the day. We are fascinated by how things come into being. I get a little bored actually when things do actually take a shape, because then you say, no, you can just sustain it, what? Unless you are a Maya Rao and says, no, I think today I'm going to add a new sequence on the day of the show. Oh my God, that's what you can talk about. So I don't want to say more. I just like these points to simmer with you. We could have a discussion about it, but we don't have that much time. I think it might be better that we just watch the first Maya's What's the Play, and then we can pool our questions together after coffee. So let's just watch this short thing she's put together